So one of the big news items that came out in the past few days, if not the past 24 to 48 hours, is the announcement that Disney has inked a deal with Sony Pictures, well, not Sony Pictures, but mostly Sony home distribution, home video distribution, to basically be the ones that will now handle the distribution of a lot of their physical media. Because apparently Disney is trying to be one of the first to basically say, yeah, we ain't doing physical media anymore, we're focusing more on digital. And that's fine, that's their choice. But here's what's interesting. With Sony being the distributor, they join basically a lineup of other, home video distributors that are being licensed out to do the same. We've seen Mill Creek, whether you like them or not, and how they do things. We've seen it with, Shout Factory and the various divisions, from Shout Factory itself to Scream Factory and so on. We've seen it even with Lion Gates and many others. These people, or these companies, I should say, are being licensed out, sourced out, if you will, by these major studios to distribute a lot of their movies on home media. And why? Well, obviously these studios like Sony, which is a big one, see the profit still in physical media. I mean, obviously, Paramount also is the same way, and they too, believe it or not, Paramount, despite the financial situation they're in right now, gets outsourced by other, rival studios to basically distribute their movies on physical media because, again, apparently Paramount, like Sony and even Universal, see the value still in physical media. They do. Warner Brothers still does it, but not as much. I have yet to see if there is a physical media version, 4K or not, of Justice League Crisis on Infinite Earths Part 1, and if there's going to be one for Part 2 and potentially Part 3. There should be, and if there is, I'm definitely getting my hands on it. I am, because, that's a big-time event. It's the first time that any of their animated films, have not just, well, it's not the first time they've done multi-parts because we've seen it with, we've seen it with the Death of Superman and the Reign of Superman and the Dark Knight Returns Part 1 and 2. We've seen it already. But this is the first time we're seeing a trilogy based on one continuous story. So that's pretty awesome, and I'd love to physically have a copy of that. And it is proven, and we have seen recent proven success with, Oppenheimer, that movies on physical media can still succeed. I mean, Oppenheimer sold out within a week, maybe within the day it was released. So there's definitely still a market there, very strong market, no matter what others say, for physical media. But what this does, though, with Disney saying, hey, look, we don't want to do physical media anymore, one, that's another little hint, going back to the audio video I did on, Coyote versus Acme, like let's say Netflix and everything not wanting to, buy the rights to Coyote and Acme, the same with Prime Video and, Disney Plus maybe, believe it or not. Those are little signs publicly that, yeah, financially, due to the strikes last year, they're not doing so well. They're not doing so well whatsoever. And basically, you see that. You see that and everything. And, when you look at Disney making this deal with Sony, that's their way of kind of publicly, saying, but not totally saying that, yeah, financially we're not doing so well. That we have to basically sell off our physical media division and outsource it to somebody else. And that's what they're doing. They're making money off of that by selling and outsourcing it to Sony. Now, do they still get a bit of the profit? Absolutely, because those are their titles. Those are their properties. But part of the deal is that Sony will be the distributor now. So anytime you see a movie that's a Disney movie coming out on Blu-ray or 4K or DVD, it's going to have the Sony home video distribution, if you will, on the spindle of that physical version, along with the Disney logo. Like it might say Disney Blu-ray and everything, but down there it'll say, Sony. It'll have something like that, but it will be a Disney film. And it's not the first time Disney has done that. Disney has outsourced, some of the movies they have outsourced. That's what I'm trying to find the right words to say here. They have outsourced some of the movies that they've even collabed with or straight out distributed, for others to release. For example, I'm looking at Popeye right now, the 1980 movie with Robin Williams. And that was, co-released by Paramount and Walt Disney. And you would think, well, Walt Disney's bigger than Paramount. They should have been the ones to put it out on Blu-ray, right? And that's correct. That is correct. They should have been the ones to do that, but they didn't. Paramount's the one that basically got the rights to the film. And Paramount is actually, by releasing it on Blu-ray, releasing a Disney film under their video distribution. So it's not the first time it's happened, nor will it be the last. I mean, heck, Disney's even outsourcing, some of their shows that they would put on physical media to places like Shout Factory. I think one of them basically was Gravity Falls, I believe. Gravity Falls, was, I think, one of them that got outsourced to, Shout Factory. And I think others as well. Now, I guess you could say the silver lining in this, though, the silver lining is maybe the deal. We don't know much about the deal, the ins and outs and everything. But the silver lining could be that, yes, Sony physically will handle all the distribution of the, properties that are under Disney, but Disney will still get credit for it being under the home video license. You see, just because a studio might get out of the physical media genre, if you will, doesn't mean they still won't want to try to have credit as being the ones that the movie's being released under. You see, we know, based on the report, that Sony is the one taking charge. Sony is the one basically putting in the time and the effort to put these out on physical media. We know that. But for all we know, we could go to a store, look up a movie, and let's say it's Oliver and Company, the 87 film. Like on the spindle I'm holding right now, it says Disney Blu-ray. But we would know that the re-release is under Sony. We would know the re-release is under Sony, and their efforts and everything to make it happen, but still it will say Disney Blu-ray. You kind of see what I'm saying? See what I'm saying? We could, as I mentioned earlier, have it say Disney Blu-ray or Disney 4K, and on the bottom of the spindle it says Sony, right? But Disney could have it worked out to where they're like, yeah, Sony, you can distribute the movies and everything, but we're taking credit for them being, because there are properties. So it could still be a Sony release via physical media, but it could say something like Disney Blu-ray or Disney DVD or Disney 4K. I know it sounds kind of complicated, but that's potentially what we could see. I don't think that will happen, but you never know. What I do look at is some of the positives. You see, there's a lot of titles, television shows, and movies from the past 50 plus, 60 plus years that have yet to get physical media releases. In fact, Frank Hill, It's Frank, sent me an article from Screen Rant saying that Disney is sitting on 20 4K remastered Fox titles that they have yet to release. And these are titles that apparently, according to Screen Rant, this is a report, don't know if it's true, totally true or not. It might be just somebody spitballing and just taking what they're hearing from numerous sources as gospel, and none of it may be true, some of it may be true, who knows. But apparently there's this report saying that Disney is sitting on 20 plus 4K remastered Fox titles, 20th Century Fox titles, and they're doing nothing with them. They're not putting them on Disney Plus. They're not putting them on Hulu. They're not putting them, out there for digital media, consumption or streaming. They're not outsourcing them to like Netflix or wherever. They're not doing anything with them. And according to the report, the silver lining with this deal when it comes to Sony is that might change. There's a good chance that might change. Like there are some classic Fox titles, 20th Century Fox titles over the past, 5 decades, 6 decades, if you will, 7 decades, that people would love to see. 8 decades. We'll put it that way. Almost 100 years of content that could get distributed. Now that Sony, has the license. But we'll have to see. We'll have to see. But that's up to them. But that's going to be up to whatever the agreement is between Sony and Disney. Disney might have said, yeah, you could just be our home video distributor and everything, and that's fine, but there's a catch. And that catch is you cannot distribute these films. These are the films that you're not going to have any access to because we don't think they'll sell. And that might be something, too, that we have to look into. That might be something, too, we have to look into. Certain movies may not see the light of day. They may not. They may not. But again, there are silver linings. For example, one of the movies that I grew up on, back in 1990, and it got promoted a lot, and it's known as one of the best rom-coms, if you will, in the past several decades, in the past 30 years. In fact, it's going to be celebrating 35 years next year, and that's Pretty Woman. And it has seen a VHS release. It has seen a Laserdisc release. Yes, that's true. It has seen a VCD release. It has seen a DVD release. It has seen a Blu-ray release. But it's yet to see a 4K release. Why? I mean, you got the special feature content already on the Blu-ray. You could just port them over to the 4K and add some more. But we haven't seen it. Disney has yet, and it's under the Touchstone home video license, right? Which is now going to be under Sony. Disney has yet to do that. So that's a benefit right there, that if you're a fan of Pretty Woman, and you've been waiting for a 4K release, you just might finally get it. Yeah. You just might finally get it. I mean, recently I upgraded my SD digital release purchase of it to HD. And I think maybe HD or 4K, I have to look. But it's HD, so I've upgraded it, and it might get upgraded even more. So if they can do that digitally, then why couldn't we see an upgraded 4K version, physically, and if not digitally? I'm just saying. So I'm looking at the fact that Sony might be looking at that movie and being like, hey, that's one of the more popular rom-coms in the past 30-plus years, and yet you have not put a 4K out on it? Guess what? We're going to take care of that. And away you go. That's probably what's going to happen. And since Sony has the rights to the Muppets Take Manhattan, guess what? You could actually see a 4K, and it's already on 4K too, from what I understand, the Muppets Take Manhattan. You could see it and Muppets in Space, which I think also has a 4K, maybe I'm wrong. But you could potentially see a box set of all the Muppet movies now. Yeah. You could see from the Muppet movie to the Great Muppet Caper to Muppets Take Manhattan, up to Muppets Christmas Carol. You could see Muppet Treasure Island, Muppets in Space, The Muppets, Muppets Most Wanted. You could end up getting a box set of all their films up to Muppets Most Wanted now, since they're all going to be distributed by Sony. You're going to have a mixture. That's something to look forward to, possibly. Not saying it is, but it's possible. Again, we don't know all the nook and crannies of the deal, but that is possible. That is possible now. It's just great to see. It's just great to see. And get this. You could also probably see distribution, Blu-ray distribution, maybe even 4K distribution, maybe not, of a lot of Disney afternoon properties. I mean, come on. We have yet to get a full release of Gummy Bears. Guess what? That now can happen. That can now happen. We have yet to get a full release of Darkwing Duck, the original. That now can happen. We have yet to get a Blu-ray release of Tailspin. And Goof Troop I think we got. I'm not really sure. But we have yet to get one of Tailspin and the original DuckTales. That can now happen. Heck, the titles I just mentioned can get finished off with Blu-ray releases. You never know. And if they're using the original masters, which Disney has access to because they own them, they're pretty much the ones that animated it, we could see 4K releases. You don't know. It's possible. Not saying it would happen, but it's possible. You see, there's a lot of benefits. That come from this deal. There's a lot of benefits that will come from this deal, but there are some catches. You see, Sony is going to be the one that takes care of the physical aspect of it. The digital part still belongs to Disney. So even if, let's say, some of those movies that, those Fox titles that Disney's sitting on, the 4K remasters, even if they get a 4K physical release, doesn't mean they'll get a digital release. Disney might be like, yeah, you can release this movie, finally on physical media, and on 4K, but we're not going to let you have a code. Because usually, sometimes Sony and Warner Brothers and those studios will give you a digital code to get a digital copy of it, at the same time after you purchase it when you get home. Or maybe do it on your phone on your way back home from the store. Disney might say, nope, you ain't going to do that. Like, you could do the physical version, we take care of the digital. That could be what happens. You never know. You never really know. I mean, for example, if they wanted to, they could say, for example, let's see what I have here. I'm looking at my movies right now. Let's say, for example, they decide to, Sony decides to release the 2-pack film Solitos Amigos and Three Caballeros. Let's say they decide, okay, we want to do a 4K release of that. Okay, fine. Not a big deal. Disney would say, yes, you could do that, but the catch is you can't do the digital because we do that. You see, Disney is not going to make a deal like this without having something in their favor, something in their control, and that control is they handle the digital portion. They're the ones that handle the digital portion. As much as we may not like that, that's a fact. That will be a fact. Because I think that's what the deal says. That Sony will be the one that does the physical, but it doesn't say they'll do the streaming. Digital. Doesn't mean they're going to do digital. It just means they're doing physical, nothing else. So that's something to pay attention to. So when you go and buy a future Disney release under the Sony distribution, and you open it and you get it home and you open it and you see, hey, there's no code in here. There's advertisement for other films, but there's no code. It's because Disney is the one that's saying, yeah, we're taking credit for that. We're the ones that are going to make profit off that. So if you want the digital, you got to pay for it. That could be something too to look out for. The other catch, too, unfortunately, is if you're a member of the Disney Movie Club, you've got till May to, get what you want out of that club because it's going bye-bye. Yeah, it's going bye-bye. Because if they're getting out of the physical media aspect, that doesn't mean they need the movie club anymore. Unless they plan to reconvert it. And what I mean by reconvert it, I mean basically by saying, we're shutting the doors on the Disney Movie Club as you know it, from a physical standpoint, but then later on make the announcement of we're reopening it from a digital aspect. That could be something too. To look out for. Like you're going to say goodbye to the old version of DMC, but eventually say hello to the more digitally supported DMC. You never know. But then again, it could also be the fact that they have Disney Plus now, so why do they need the Disney Movie Club even in digital form? I'm just saying. But however you look at this situation, there is a benefit, there is a silver lining. Because as we have seen, and I mentioned this earlier, when other places, like let's say Shout Factory, Mill Creek, even the other major studios like Lionsgate and Universal and even Paramount to an extent, when they are, outsourced by other studios, whether they're fellow rivals like, Disney or Warner Brothers or whatever, when they are outsourced, to be the home video distributor, of, the other company, like, again, if like Shout Factory's the distributor sometimes for some of the Disney animated products, we know that. The silver lining is you will probably see releases of stuff you have yet to see under the Disney banner. Now you'll probably see it under this new regime that's taking control. or has the license for the time being. And that's a benefit. That's a benefit. I mean, there's a lot of people that wants to see, obviously Amphibia, very popular series, Amphibia has had physical releases, but nothing like complete series, Blu-ray, maybe even 4K. Well, now you could see that. That's a possibility. Same with the Owl House, if you will. That's a possibility. But, overall, there is silver linings. Again, there are some catches you got to keep an eye out for. There might be some catches, like I mentioned, that you got to keep an eye out for. But overall, there are some silver linings here that are going to be beneficial. There are. There's no doubt about it. Like, let's say Star Wars. Star Wars is, mostly under the Disney release banner, right? Or has been under the Disney release banner for a while. Star Wars could get a complete set release of not just the first 9 films, if you will, the prequels, the original trilogy, and the sequels, but they could also have that combined with some of their other stories, like Rogue and Han, or Solo, basically. Like Rogue and Solo could be added in. You get a package deal right there on 4K. That could be something too. So there are silver linings, but like I said, there are some catches. One of those catches, as I mentioned, is Disney would be in charge of the digital aspect of it and not Sony. The other catch is that Disney might say, hey, you could release some movies on 4K and Blu-ray and DVD and all that, except for these titles that we don't want released because we don't think they'll sell. There's that, catch too. So you gotta be, you gotta kind of be vigilant in what happens, when you purchase some movies that will now be distributed by Sony for Disney. And again, like I said, this is not something new. This is something that's always happened. Disney, like I mentioned earlier, is working with Shout Factory by having them distribute some of their titles, from an animation perspective and even live action. Other studios work with each other in a way. Disney, I'm sure, has worked in silent with people like Universal, Lionsgate, and all that, but they just won't say. And vice versa. There's no doubt Universal has worked with Lionsgate. They've worked, with Warner Brothers and Paramount and even Sony to distribute films, but they won't say. I mean, everybody has worked with each other to make, do something like this, in the past and into the present. Shout Factory and Mill Creek are always beneficial from this because there are major studios that will come to them and say, hey, we have these old films, we know people want them on physical media, they want them on 4K and Blu-ray, we want you to take care of it, here, we'll pay you this much money to do it, and they will do it. Shout Factory, will benefit, by using the numerous divisions like Shout Kids, Scream Factory, and so on to make it happen. Same with Mill Creek. Despite how you feel about their packaging of films and shows and all that, they get licensed out or outsourced by a major studio to distribute a film on Blu-ray and 4K, they will do it. Same with Discotech Media, despite how you feel about them. They could get outsourced by Disney, by Warner Brothers, by Sony and whoever to basically put certain titles on Blu-ray and 4K, and they will do it. You see what I'm saying? See what I'm saying? They will basically, any studio out there, they will basically, if they have a home video distributor, they will basically release, a lot of titles that they're outsourced to do so on physical media. And sometimes that's a benefit and a blessing because, through them, you'll finally see releases of stuff that you won't see under the OG distributors, basically the studio that has ownership of them themselves. But we'll see what happens now with this deal. I'm looking at the bright side of it, and hopefully we do get some releases we never thought we'd see. But let me know what your thoughts are on this whole Sony taking over the home video distribution physical media for Disney in the future. Let me know what your thoughts are. Comment below, like, chat during the premiere, and I'm out.